is up? Kind of doing my every other week tradition where I take the M3 out. I'm going to show you guys how to properly warm up this car. I think one of the biggest things that people don't do right is warm it up correctly, and that's why this whole rod bearing thing is like blown out of proportions. Still have my stock rod bearings, and I'm going to show you guys how I maintain them by warming up my car the right way. So you're going to notice that my idle when I turn on the car isn't perfect, and it's primarily because I need to get my idle control valve switched out for a new one. I'm going to do that on December 1st, so let's do a cold start. See how it's kind of bouncing just a tiny bit. Earlier it was really bad. So when I turn on the car, I wait for the revs to just calm down, for it to find where its resting place is going to be. If it's way up here, the car is obviously not ready. I think a lot of car guys know that when you turn on your car, you're supposed to let it circulate just a little bit. You don't necessarily need to warm it up by just sitting there. Okay, that's looking good, so let's take off. So the two main things you kind of need to pay attention to primarily is right here and right here. You need to be around 210 degrees Fahrenheit to really push the car. This rev limiter, some people think that it's gonna tell you when the car is warmed up and you can rev it, but that's not necessarily true. It's primarily made as a safeguard for when you're turning on the car and when you're driving. You don't want to rev anywhere close to that. Until the car is warm, I don't rev past 3,000 RPM, and I even try and keep it around 2,500. Give you an idea of how cold it is right now. It's 47 degrees here in California. A bit chilly. I hate when this comes up right here after washing the car. So we're driving. We're still going. It's gonna be a few minutes until the car is actually warmed up. You just gotta chill. Just drive the car normally. Try not to full send it. It's not too hard to try and do, but oftentimes what I find is whenever you're driving, when you're warming up the car is when everyone wants to race you. But like I said earlier, you have to pay attention to the temp gauge and also the rev limiter. So another way to protect your rod bearing is you don't want to be in a higher gear than you're supposed to, because that puts more load on the engine. Even right now, I should be borderline 5th, 6th, but my goal is to keep it under 3,000 RPM. After I drive for a few minutes, I change the DCT to not the maximum setting, but the next one up from what it usually starts on. The reason being is I want there to be some friction with the dual clutch so that it does warm up in time for when the car is actually ready. Also, I find that when I'm driving in this area, I start to downshift. As you can see, the rev limiter has definitely gone way down. You're gonna notice that this yellow portion will be way down here around that 8,000 mark, and that's where the car can rev up to safely. But like I said, you don't want to do that until you reach your 210 mark. If you guys pay close attention to my rev limiter, you may see a few little blips, but I've already made my appointment at Precision Dynamics to do not only my idle control valve, but also my fuel filler valve, or fuel breather valve, I believe it's called. And both of those will technically help my idling situation, and they're two kind of big ticket items that you gotta do. And keep in mind, my car is only at 72,000 miles, and that's around the time that things start to be changed, as in with every single car that people own, whether it be a Honda or a BMW. So I've been driving 3-4 minutes now, and the car still really isn't warmed up yet. But what I do find is that the E92 really warms up a lot faster than the F80 because it doesn't have those turbos. I think it takes even half amount of the time, if I'm correct. This kind of brings me to the topic of rod bearings. For a lot of you guys who are buying used ones with higher mileage, I say yes, go ahead, do your rod bearings if you can afford it, and do it as soon as you can. But if you're a long-term owner, I've had this car maybe 5 years now, or maybe I'd say 4 years, and I'm only the second owner. The first owner had put maybe 20-some odd thousand miles. So I know exactly how the car has been taken care of, so I don't feel the need to change my rod bearings immediately. I have zero sense of impending doom that people kind of acclaim to, and that's because I know how I've driven the car. I've known about all the times that I've ever driven hard on it. I know that I've never tracked it. I have taken it to the canyons on multiple occasions, but that's a far cry from an actual track day. So I have, zero impending doom, like I said, about rod bearings. And that seems to be what everyone loves to talk about on the forums. As you can see, I'm still nowhere close to 210, and I'm almost at Starbucks to get my weekend coffee, so be it. But it usually doesn't warm up until I actually have my coffee. is what I'm finding. But also it's a bit colder than what it usually is here in Southern California. One thing you should not do in the dual clutch, which I see a lot of people do, is downshift into first gear. I mean, you never really downshift into first gear in a manual transmission, aside from when you're like just on a little bit of a roll. Get up to speed without having to rev it all the way out, and it takes some time to get used to, especially when you're warming up the car. And yeah, you know, people say, oh my god, if I turn on to traffic and I can't rev it out. Well, obviously if you need to rev it out, but this car has plenty of torque for in-city driving, I feel like, and enough horsepower to get you going. So I'm at Starbucks. Let me get my coffee real quick. So my GoPro died, but as you can see, I am finally up to temperature. So you can drive it a little bit louder, a little bit faster, and rev it past your 3,000 or 4,000 mark. Heading all the way back home and charging the GoPro, but it charged just enough to get full battery and for me to do this for you guys. We can go into M mode. Sketchy turn. People are always flying up all crazy. This car just feels so crazy compared to the F80. Like, oh my god. So, yeah, that's how you warm up your car, I guess. Keep in mind, you have this at 210, this is all the way down, and the car's ready. It's pretty simple. Plus you can downshift all crazy.